The precise definition of movement varies a little bit from person to person, but basically, it's when you have a lot of people coming to saving faith, disciples who are making more disciples, they're reproducing rapidly. It's not just like, I've been a Christian 10 years, I should tell somebody else about Jesus. It's like people coming to faith and sharing with their families, those families coming to faith, sharing with others. So rapidly reproducing more disciples, and then these disciples forming into small churches, house churches, and that might be 25 people, it might be 10 people, it might be 7 people, depending on the context. But again, because these churches are very simple, they don't need a fancy building, don't need to send a guy off to seminary to be a pastor. They can reproduce quickly. So you have disciples reproducing disciples, churches reproducing churches, and you having leaders raising up new leaders, indigenous leaders in those contexts. And so that results in what we describe as generations of churches. So when one church plants another church, that becomes the second generation church. When they plant another, that's a third generation church. When that plants another, that's a fourth generation church. And so when you have this happening generation after generation, when it's 4 generations or more of churches, that means it's not dependent on one guy. In the past, there have been big movements happening because somebody was an amazing preacher. Somebody had lots of charisma. These movements are not dependent on somebody with lots of charisma. When it's reproducing to the 4th and 5th and 7th and 8th and 20th generation, a lot of those people don't even know the guy who started it. It's because of the DNA or the characteristics that are being reproduced of sharing the gospel, studying the Bible, obeying the Bible, reaching groups, radically loving Jesus, and radically loving people. All those things, those are being reproduced. And so that's why it can continue to many generations. And when one church plants a few churches, those then become streams growing. So you end up with like a whole tree, a family tree of churches that have planted churches. That's a movement.
Yeah, and I'll try my best to get a graphic up on screen after we edit this. But for the people seeing it, you can quickly see when you see it mapped out. If this has happened 100 times, we're talking thousands upon thousands of people coming to Christ.
Yeah.
And in my context, my culture, my Christian background, we would call that a revival. If 100 or 1,000 house churches were planted in like 5 years, we'd be like, wait, what? Like, and you mean in the whole country, right? No, like in this specific area, it's just these mind-blowing situations. And last I heard, the number was like 1,300, somewhere in the 1,300s. Do you know what the updated number looks like today in terms of how many of these movements, or dare I say revivals, are happening around the world? In terms of this specific definition, what the consensus is as of right now?
Yep. Yeah, the definition as I've described it of a church planting movement or disciple making movement, there are over 2,000 of those movements happening around the world. Most of them are happening among the unreached. And the disciples, the number of believers in those movements is over 100 million. So it's a lot of people. That's a huge number. And the irony is it's often kind of invisible because they look like everybody else. You go into a Muslim area and the believers, they've come to faith, but they still wear the same clothes. They still eat the same food. They still, do life this kind of the same way, except now they're radically following Jesus.
Yeah, that was one of the things that kind of struck me about. I'm pretty sure it was in, and I'm going to pronounce it wrong, but the Bhojpuri, is that accurate?
Bhojpuri.
Bhojpuri.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. So, one of the books that Dave has helped put together and write, and just it's amazing unbelievable story. We could talk. I could do 6 podcasts with you about this book and about the stories there, where it's like millions of believers in this one area of India come to Christ in this in a short window. It's like less
Hmm.
than 20 years, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Amazing book. Amazing stories of what God's doing.
right.
You guys put a lot of effort into that and unveiled a lot of things to people seeking out how they can best serve God and multiply His kingdom. It's pretty amazing.
It's great. It's I praise the Lord for that. It's
Yeah.
God's doing amazing stuff, and I love being able to tell the stories.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there over 2,000 of those stories. That's pretty outrageous, and each one encapsulating thousands, hundreds of thousands of stories and churches and
Yeah.
transformations around the world. So it's an amazing thing. Hey, if you're a Christian, you want your life to count, you want to start making disciples, give us a like and click subscribe for more.